Well, I mean, a little bit like Piers, your earlier speaker. I just sort of felt I couldn't sort of sit there and do nothing. And so in the first days of the war, I started off at the Polish border, moving refugees away from the border. And then after about a week, I decided actually where the help is really needed is in Ukraine. And I brought in 3 buses, started moving people away from Kyiv, where the war started, in Lviv. And then it sort of grew from there. And I now have like 8 hubs around the country, mainly around the war zones. And I speak with local government officials and they say to me, hey, we got 50 people in this area. Can you move them? And I've ended up moving about 4 orphanages. And 3 weeks ago, I was in Kharkiv and I moved just over 1,000 people out of a Russian-controlled area through 500 meters of anti-tank mines. And you know, every day is a different day and every day is a different challenge, but I'm sort of not giving up till the war's over.
Do you feel safe? Because as you mentioned, you know, you're everywhere in Ukraine and, you know, it's a great thing, of course, because there's a war going on and people do need rescuing. But how safe is it at the moment for people like you who are doing humanitarian work?
Yeah, you sort of don't, at least for me, I don't think about it. I think maybe the adrenaline keeps me going. I mean, I was on the way to this checkpoint I was going to 3 weeks ago. I heard this sort of big bang in the car I was in. I thought I'd blown a tire. But then my guy driving me, Ihor, said, no, that was a mortar bomb just landed 70 meters behind us. I mean, you sort of don't think about it. And in Kharkiv itself, which you've talked about on your show, is every day there are bombs landing. But you sort of, for me at least, I don't think about it. You feel this sort of invisible shield around you and you're not going to get hurt. I'm foolish thinking that, but that's what keeps me going.
And the scale of the refugee crisis is enormous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just give us a little bit about what the state of affairs is at the moment, because, of course, initially with Poland, of course, bordering Ukraine, the flow of refugees into Poland was particularly acute there. Has the Western countries in that region, have they rallied together now and sort of helped refugees distribute more evenly?
Yeah, I mean, I think now that I've seen who's doing what around Europe, I think the UK is probably doing more than most. The thing is, for most Ukrainians, they don't want to come all the way to the UK.
Yeah.
Most of them want to go next door to Poland, where the language is sort of similar. And they can go back. So actually, lately, I think there's been about 1.5 million Ukrainians have gone back from Poland into Ukraine.
Yeah.
So there is this two-way flow. And I think while people feel safe in the west of Ukraine, which is where I'm busing people to, I think you'll probably see more of a flow going back into Ukraine at the moment than going out. What I'm doing, though, is taking people away from where the war zones are into safety within Ukraine. So I'm not taking them across the border.
Yeah, because, of course, they would prefer to stay in their homeland, wouldn't they? I do have to ask you this because we do get a range of views on this show, and one of those is that we need to stop sending money to Ukraine now. You know, we've sent billions in aid, and people will say, "Look, what about us here at home? We need that money as well." Now, of course, it's a bit of a false dichotomy because we can and are doing both to help people here at home and in Ukraine. But what would you say to those people about why it is important to continue supporting the Ukrainian people?
Well, you know, I studied history at university, and history tells you if you don't stop a dictatorship, sort of effectively like Putin, that he will just keep pushing boundaries. And our concern will be, yes, we need to spend some money now, but actually, if we do nothing now, there's a risk that it could end up being a much bigger war later on. So I think we need to draw a line in Ukraine, say enough is enough, give the Ukrainians what they need to fight this war, so perhaps we don't have to get as engaged, and make sure that we stop Putin in his tracks in Ukraine.